I cannot understand for the life of me why we have so many people pushing for polygamous relationships.
How is every poly person ugly? Every time that you see people making TikToks about their polyamorous relationships, for some reason everyone involved is either obese, dysgenic looking, unwashed.
Even if I have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, that I'm open to the possibility of connecting with somebody else.
What?
Ugh. Brother, ugh. What's that? What's that, brother?
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Justice Voice podcast. I'm your host, Chelsea Hoffman, as usual. And today I want to talk about another hot button topic that has a lot of people divided, and I have a lot of opinions on it. Polyamory and, things surrounding the umbrella of polyamory. E&M, swinging, all of those little degenerative things, I guess. Degenerative? Is that the word? Anyways, the people who engage in this are degenerates. That's what I'm trying to say. Before I get into this, I guess you can already tell where my stance is on this topic. I'm not a fan, and that's kind of the reason why I'm doing this episode, because I know I'm not the only one who is sick of having this garbage forced down my throat by people in the media, friends, just people who feel the need to proselytize their sexual and relationship endeavors, among a whole other host of degenerate behavior, to be honest.
But Chelsea, whatever happened to live and let live and not judging people based on who they love?
Shut up. No, but seriously, in general, I don't want to be judgmental, even though I am probably the most judgmental person I know. And I'm not saying that polyamorous people shouldn't have basic human rights like the rest of us. I'm just saying that their way of life is gross and weird, and none of us want to be roped into it or have it forced down our throats. In the past few years that polyamory has found a new wave of popularity, it just seems like you can't turn anywhere, you can't post anywhere, you can't even take a walk anywhere lately without some weird polyamorous couple, throuple, or quadruple trying to recruit you into their polycule. So, yeah, I'm judging. So in the following few segments of the show, I'm going to be addressing various levels of what has been called online polyfuckery. We're going to find some stats and some studies and try to debunk some of the wild, unhinged claims made by people in the online cult that surrounds this weird fucking lifestyle that people are dabbling in. So, get ready to either have a really good time or a really bad one. First, can I point out just how fucking silly the entire umbrella of polyamory is? There's just so many different types of polyamory that it just, I don't know, it seems like just a grab bag of fuckery. You got hierarchical polyamory, polyfidelity, triads, kitchen table polyamory, relationship anarchy, garden party polyamory, parallel polyamory, monopoly relationships, E&M, which is ethical non-monogamy, just what people call open relationships, solo polyamory, which is just... but the list goes on and on and on. And yes, I'm just listing off the basic types that you get from a Google search. So don't come at me if you didn't hear any that you thought I should have included or what. Because I don't really care, guys. It seems to me that if you have to create so many different subtypes, subcategories, and varieties of a certain philosophy and idea pertaining to human relationships of this nature, there's something wrong. I don't know. That's just me, though. And you know what? To be fair, I went ahead and Googled types of monogamous relationships to see if monogamy has the same level of spider vein philosophy. I don't know what to call it. Let's just, whatever. And you know what? I'm going to be fair here. There are a couple different types of monogamy. There's social, sexual, and genetic monogamy. Serial monogamy, which, yeah, I already know that's a thing. And monogamish. And that is a type of relationship that's neither fully monogamous or fully non-monogamous. And that makes sense. But I would consider that to be more under the polyamory category. But what do I know? I'm not some relationship expert. And I will never pretend to be one. In fact, I'm probably a serial monogamous with all the relationships I've been in. So, there's that. I am nothing if I'm not fair. And if I don't look at both sides. As much as I want to clown on polyamory, there are some aspects of monogamy to clown on as well. Let's be real. But anyways, that's not what this show's about. Maybe I'll do an episode making fun of monogamists for no apparent reason. Yeah. That'll be a later one in satire. So let's get down to the meat of this issue and what exactly it is that I have against polyamory and the people that this philosophy attracts. First of all, I want to pose a question. In the vast majority of these polyamorous relationships, who is exactly benefiting from this dynamic? Because in every single poly relationship that I've encountered personally and that I've witnessed and among the people that I have known personally, it's never been both partners. And of course, when I say both partners, referring to two people, I'm referring to the initial couple before they engaged in the lifestyle of polyamory or swinging or whatever you want to call it. I've been alive for over 40 years, and I've known quite a few people throughout my life who have engaged in this lifestyle, whether it be just swinging or having just an open relationship or full on having some degree of a polyamorous relationship under the categories that I mentioned earlier. Out of every single couple I've known, the switch from being a monogamous couple to a polyamorous or open relationship was initially suggested by the male side of the relationship or marriage. And yes, that is including the couple of relationships I've known where the male was a cuck and the woman was a, quote, hot wife, where she was allowed to sleep around with whoever she wanted, and he didn't sleep with anybody at all, usually her included. Even those weird dynamics were suggested by the husbands. And furthermore, in almost every single one of those relationships, the women didn't really seem happy. In fact, quite a few of these women that I knew weren't happy. I had become close friends with a few, and they had confided in me plenty of times that they were unhappy with the relationship dynamic that they had found themselves in with their husbands or boyfriends. There was one friend, however, that I had who kind of found her own way to be happy with the dynamic that her boyfriend had put on her. He suggested that they have an open relationship because he, quote, liked variety and, quote, couldn't settle for just one person to have sex with his whole life. Well, she decided, sure, let's have an open relationship. Let's do this thing that you're suggesting because you're so bored. To this day, I don't know if I've ever heard of him having another girlfriend or anything like that. But she's her groove on. She has a lot of dates. She's always got a new partner to have fun with. And he doesn't really. He just kind of stays at home and waits for her to come home. So I don't know if in the end this turned into sort of a cuckolding fetish for him. And that's what it was all along. And that's what he wanted to happen. or if he, fucked around and found out that it's easier for women in the dating pool than it is for men. And that maybe he shouldn't have made that suggestion. Now, these examples that I've mentioned for the past few minutes, these are involving people that I've known personally in real life over the years. Strangely enough, a lot of the couples or individuals in relationships that are poly that I've encountered online, it varies a little bit. But almost every single relationship still appears to have an imbalance in who is exactly into the polyamorous idea. So I don't want to say that this is a whole thing for men, that women are just catering to their boyfriends and husbands because they don't want to be single and they're willing to share their partners. I'm not saying that, but in many aspects it seems to be that. But it also seems that this happens to men as well, who perhaps, aren't very successful in the dating field, and they have one partner that they are actually comfortable with and that they love and don't want to lose. But their female partner is falling prey to the new revived trend of polyamory, swinging, E&M, whatever you want to call it. And I've noticed that it's been a lot of women who, bring up their poly lifestyle that they're so proud of that they need to talk about. It's become kind of like a joke. Like, I remember back in the day, there used to be jokes about vegans, CrossFitters, and Dude, let's just say vegans and CrossFitters. They'll volunteer. You don't have to ask them what they are. They'll tell you. And it's become pretty much the same with polyamorous people. And online, it tends to be younger women, like women under 30, who are incredibly forward and outspoken about being poly and, quote, not owning their partners, or their partners, quote, not owning them. And then when you see these people, their relationships look no different than their other counterparts, where the men are the ones who suggest. Only instead of the female part of the relationship being miserable and sad, it's the man. And maybe I'm, speaking out of line here, because I've noticed that there's also a lot of, queer poly relationships, and those are valid too. And I'm not really digging too deep into those, though I could, because it doesn't really seem like this is a gender specific thing. It seems to be more of a bad person thing. It just so happens that the status quo of relationships appears, that the male side causes the most problems. Not trying to, talk a lot of crap about men, even though, we all know. We know. But it just seems that, like, people who are more prone to cheating, more prone to narcissism, or seeing relationships as commodities, these are the type of people who are drawn to polyamorous relationships. And not only that, drawn to being the one in control of the polyamorous relationship, the one who suggests it, the one who will even gaslight and guilt trip their partners and other people in order to get the dynamic that they want. That's just my opinion based on observation, not being blind, having a brain, And there's something else I've noticed about this revived polyamory trend. The people who seem to be the most forward and cult-like about this whole lifestyle are the same people who are chronically online and latch on to every other little viral trend that comes their way. You know what I'm talking about, right? Also, probably not by coincidence, these same types tend to also be female. Like I said earlier, women under 30. So we have this generation of young women who are chronically online, latching on to every identity trend, every social trend that comes their way. And suddenly they collect labels and personality traits and identities as if they're Pokemon. So naturally, polyamory becomes the next logical step for them because now they get to collect partners like Pokemon while also taking advantage of a cool trend that they think makes them seem interesting and cool. But at the end of the day, it just makes them look more like the sheep that they are. And to be fair, these types of girls have always existed. They're the types of girls who, like, back when I was in high school or whatever, they would say that they're bisexual because that was the trend in the late 90s and the early 2000s was to come out as bisexual or to make out with girls at parties because it was fun and cool. I don't want to blame Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera and Madonna for that, on stage Grammys kiss, but that created a whole whirlwind of, oh my God, I'm totally bisexual girls who you only ever see with women during parties surrounded by men who cheer them on. And in the end, they end up in a straight marriage with kids. You know what I'm talking about? This young, trendy wave of polyamorous women under 30 or whatever. They appear to have the same sort of issue as the, oh my God, I'm bisexual girls that I mentioned a few seconds ago. You know the type. When DID became a sweeping trend on TikTok, suddenly they all had DID and they were all part of various systems where they had to switch between different personalities, blah, 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 blah. When gender identity and social politics surrounding gender became super trendy and popular, suddenly every girl you knew that had a thing for anime was non-binary and gender fluid, even though they stayed in relationships with cis men who used their bodies as their assigned gender nonetheless. And I don't know, maybe I'm being insensitive because I know that non-binary and gender fluid people and trans people exist. They're real and they're human beings. They're totally lovely. But I also believe that the entire situation has also been exploited by, let's say, culture vultures who have no sense of their own identity and, again, who latch on to trends to feel special, unique, and cool while also feeling accepted. And as I was saying earlier, a lot of these girls also start to brag about their polyamorous philosophies that they just learned about on TikTok or any other social media platform. And it's pathetic. It's sad. It's sad. And I want to clarify that it is still not entirely women online that's doing this. There's also been a new recent wave of men, of course, falling into the online shit surrounding polyamory, which that is just less surprising because, as I said earlier, it's, in my experience, before the online trend started happening, it was men that I knew in relationships that were suggesting this in the first place. So it just all comes full circle, I think, and it just further illustrates what I was saying earlier, that I don't think this is a gender-specific thing. This is just a bad person thing, and bad people will try to make you do shitty things with them so they don't feel like bad people. That's just my take on that. And also my take is silly people who fall victim to trends and have sheep-like mentalities become incredibly easy prey to these predatory concepts and philosophies and lifestyles, and either inadvertently become the wolf-like predatory men that I've mentioned, or unwittingly fall victim to them all the same. And listen, when I say that a lot of these polyamorous people are predatory and narcissistic in nature, I'm not exaggerating. I'm not trying to generalize too much. I'm just saying a lot of them act like fucking predators. I can't tell you how many times I've seen the dynamic of a married couple letting an inappropriately younger female move into their homes under the guise of helping her have a place to stay for whatever reason. Maybe she's left a household or is experiencing homelessness and job loss, whatever. But then eventually turns into a throuple type situation or a swinger thing of sorts. I've seen it with my own eyes multiple times with multiple people that I know personally. And to be fair, it's not usually the age gap that's the issue, because, like, let me be clear, I'm in an age gap relationship myself. There's nothing wrong with an age gap relationship when everybody's of sound mind and sound emotion and is consenting to everything. But what's weird is it's usually someone who's far younger and vulnerable in a situation where they need the older couple's help, whether it be financially or through some sort of emotional or, other kind of support. And it just kind of seems like there's not only the power imbalance with the age gap, because of course there's a sense of a loss of power balance when there's an age gap, but it seems like it just doubles on that imbalance of power. Not only is the person super young and impressionable and vulnerable potentially, but they're definitely vulnerable in that they usually need a place to stay or they need some sort of help from this older couple. So I don't know. It just, the whole thing just seems inappropriate and predatory in nature. And I feel like a lot of these situations involve this specific scenario. And it doesn't seem right to me. And other ways that polyamorous people tend to be predatory. Have you ever been on a dating app in the past several years? Like, have you tried to date in these modern times of degeneracy and lack of respecting boundaries? Have you? Because I have, and let me tell you, I don't know if a lot of poly people are merely illiterate or if they literally just do not care about the personal boundaries of monogamous people or people who aren't interested in the lifestyle that they're living. I thought we all went over the concept of consent years ago. Like wasn't it a trend in recent years to really push forth the concept of consent and personal boundaries when it comes to sexual behavior and relationships? Didn't we just go over this? Because it seems like a lot of these chronically online trend chasers who fall into the trendy poly philosophy have also gotten amnesia and forgotten all about boundaries and consent. In my own experience on dating apps like Bumble, Hinge, Tinder, even if I put in my bio that I was monogamous and seeking only monogamous connections, friendships, relationships, and whatever, an alarming number of polyamorous people and people boasting that they were E&M, they were trying to match with me. And the ones that didn't even have it on their profile, they were posing as potentially monogamous people. They would match with me, and then they would chat with me for a little bit. And only after we started to vibe and things seemed like, we might be able to have a good connection, would they drop the poly bomb on me instead of being open with it in the first place after seeing my profile stating that I'm monogamous and I'm only interested in monogamy. And to make things creepier with these people, when these non-monogamous couples, these poly couples, when they would try to match with me and they'd send me messages and try to engage with me, I would try to be polite at first and say, no, I'm sorry, I'm a monogamous person, I'm not interested in couples, I don't want to be a part of this. I wish you luck though. I would start out pretty polite. A lot of the times these poly folks, they didn't take no for an answer, which is really concerning to me. They would come back and try to continue chatting and try to ask me why. Why am I not interested in their lifestyle? Why do I want to be monogamous? I don't see why this even needed to be a debate, honestly. Like, I like what I like, and I am who I am, and if y'all are who you are, you should be comfortable enough with that to not need to recruit unwilling participants. And the thing is I'm the only person who has this kind of experience on dating apps. There are people complaining about this right and left online on different message forums and different groups on Facebook. One group in particular is "When will the polyamorous shut up?" So many people have the same story that I have from trying to use the dating apps in recent years. Fortunately, I was lucky, and I've got myself a fiance who is completely monogamous. He's not into the whole poly thing. We've talked about this a million times. He thinks it's as gross as I do. But unfortunately, a lot of these men and women with stories like mine, they're still having a hard time finding somebody who is legit monogamous, and they just have to constantly dodge polyamorous people, whether it's like women that are on the prowl for their like 10th partner of the day, or it's men that are harem building. It's ridiculous out there, y'all. It really is. The dating pool is a sewer. Anyways, coming back to the topic of polyamorous people being predatory, and of course, I'm not saying that every single poly person's predatory. I'm just saying that, it appears that a lot of them are, and the ones that aren't are victims. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, I'm moving on. In the same vein that a lot of these people tend to be predatory, a lot of them seem to be very narcissistic, selfish people who treat love and relationships like commodities. And this can be said in how they treat other people, and if you watch a lot of the influencers, the influencers that brag about being polyamorous, and these people who try to like recruit others into the poly lifestyle, you'll notice that there's a sort of almost boilerplate set of comments, sayings, responses that they all tend to use when encountered in the wild among monogamous people, and they tend to be borderline gaslighty and abusive. This brings me back to calling the whole thing a cult, and I'm not saying that polyamory in and of itself is a cult, but the current revival of the trend itself is creating cult-like behavior in the people who have discovered it, ascribe to it, and are demanding that other people in their lives adhere to it, or if not adhere to it, but respect it and validate it as something that it's not, which, I mean, I'm sorry, but it's not a healthy way of life. At least not how it appears that most people are practicing it, not how people are treating it, and not how people are behaving in the online world. And I've mentioned some of the predatory ways that polyamorous people take advantage of other people. But they're also predatory in ways that they are gaslighting and abusive to some of their partners. There's this trend of people who are, quote, coming out as polyamorous well into their monogamous relationships. Some of these relationships being marriages as long as 7, 10, 15, 20 years and more. These people are, quote, coming out, treating their lifestyle choice as a sexual orientation, as if they're like gay, lesbian, trans, etc. And then these people who come out as polyamorous deep into their mono relationships then post their sad, broken-hearted reactions when their spouses file for divorce or their significant others pack up and leave. On the flip side of this, you will notice a lot of these partners on the other side coming out with their stories about how their, quote, poly partner had tried to gaslight them, shame them, and guilt them into being accepting of their new orientation as being polyamorous. I implore you to check Reddit. for some of these discussions, confessions, complaints, and posts on the popular subreddit AITA. A lot of these people have similar experiences. The story kind of rings similar every time. Step one, spouse or long-term boyfriend or girlfriend comes out as a polyamorous person. Step two, the monogamous spouse or girlfriend, boyfriend, broken, offended, and doesn't want to take part in a polyamorous lifestyle. Step three, the quote poly partner who just came out becomes equally as emotional and bewildered at just how conditioned their monogamous partner is to be jealous and insecure and rigid and unwilling to allow them to be who they are. And it all becomes the same sort of cycle of bullshit that leaves the quote monogamous partner feeling like garbage at the whims of their partner, who basically is just asking for the green light to cheat on them and nothing more. And this gaslighting, inappropriate, boundary ignoring behavior isn't just isolated to these polyamorous people's own failing relationships. It also extends to other relationships that have nothing to do with them. And I've witnessed this in the wild myself. A handful of years ago, a pretty close friend of mine, she was married with kids, blah, blah, blah. She had caught her husband cheating on her. And like any woman would be, she was brokenhearted. She was completely crushed. This incident, like, threw her entire world upside down, completely destroyed her family. Like, you know, infidelity in marriage does that for pretty much anybody. It's a traumatic experience. In fact, there is actual scientific proof that infidelity in marriage leads to psychological damage in the person who's on the other end of it, the victim of the infidelity. You would think for a group of people who brag about being psychologically aware and emotionally evolved would recognize that catching a spouse cheating or infidelity in any relationship dynamic is damaging, psychologically and emotionally so. But nope. When my friend discovered her husband's infidelity, the very day that it happened, or maybe it was the day after, but it was very fresh, she posted to Facebook about what she found out and her sadness and that her life was pretty much crumbling before her eyes. And we had a friend at the same time, a mutual, who was one of those, you know, trend chasers, chronically online, a big fat acceptance movement, relationship anarchist. You know what? If there was an identity that was popular she was claiming it, okay? She pops up in the comments, one of the first comments. And the first thing out of her mouth wasn't, oh, condolences, oh, I'm sorry you're going through this, I'm here as a friend, we care about you, blah, blah, blah. No, it was none of that. The first thing out of this cow's mouth was, you wouldn't be going through this if you were poly. And this is not an uncommon behavior among these people. These people are sociopathic in the way that they skirt other people's boundaries. They also react like religious zealots whenever the topic of monogamy or polyamory come up. And really, to be honest, the topics themselves don't even have to come up, but rather situations where they can have an excuse to insert their philosophies come up. Do you get what I'm saying? Let me give you an example. You know how I said that you never need to ask to get the info from someone who's polyamorous? They'll just volunteer it at any opportunity, whether it's necessary or not, right? Not too long ago, maybe like a year ago, I had entered a new relationship that we were still ironing out some kinks, and one of those situations was, I'm not trying to give too much info because I don't know, I don't want to be tacky, but one of those situations involved a past friend who had been sexual with my boyfriend. And we were trying to put some boundaries in place, you know, as one does. This little trend chaser thought it was the ideal time to volunteer to me that she was polyamorous and didn't feel like she owned anybody. And I'm like, okay, that's great. Proud of you. But like, we're not polyamorous. So kindly use some common decency and maybe respect the boundary we've put in place. Thanks. Like, nobody asked. I don't care. Just, you know, respect my relationship. I really don't care about your relationship or how you view relationships. Just don't try to mess with other people's relationships. It's not that hard to be decent. It's like a religious cult. Like, it's that need to proselytize and preach and convert or something. It's fucking weird, man. And it sucks that that's not the only encounter I've had with one of these people that's left me going, okay, that was weird. Not too long ago, I shared a meme on my Facebook wall. Just a dumb little relationship meme. It was like something about going through phones, and I don't know, I made a little joking. It's whatever. And this girl just came out of nowhere talking about how toxic monogamous people are and how we don't own other people, blah, blah. You know what? I didn't really even care to read all of it because it was just like visual noise that I don't care about. And it goes to prove that some of these people are just blindly, mindlessly following these trends and adhering to it so rigidly that yeah, they're like brainwashed, like what religion does to people. And it's fucking scary, man. Not scary like, you know, werewolves and vampires or zombies or anything, but you know what? Yeah, maybe scary like zombies. Because it seems kind of zombie-like to fall into these trends and just act so brainless and so toxic, while at the same time treating monogamy and monogamous people like we're toxic. And instead of acknowledging the fact of the matter is that we're all a little toxic as human beings, and not everybody is fully right, but some of us are gross as hell, that's for sure. But anyway, this was a long one, guys, and it was all just me bitching about polyamory and how gross poly people are. And I know that a lot of you are gonna be so mad. I'm probably even gonna lose some friends from this one, but like, I don't know. I've been polite. I don't like directly tell my friends and loved ones that I think they're gross. I don't abuse them, but I think they know how I feel. So hopefully they're cruising my podcast. If they do, like, hey, it's, you know, I love you guys. I think that this is a gross lifestyle and a gross philosophy. And I think that it attracts a lot of gross people. And I also think that it attracts a lot of easily impressionable people who are easy targets for the gross people. So it's just a cycle of grossness that I wish people would take a better look at before engaging with. You know, or hell, maybe it's, you know, it's a good thing to maybe dabble with and experiment with it sometime, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's fully sustainable. But that's just my opinion. Do what y'all want to do. At the end of the day, do what you guys want to do. Just stop trying to recruit people and include people, especially people who aren't interested and who don't want to be a style. If you get in a monogamous relationship, like, don't try to recruit your spouse into stuff that they don't want to do for the sake of wanting to keep you in their lives. Do the good thing, do the right thing, leave them. Go live your shitty life and let them find who actually loves them. And, you know, if you're on dating apps looking for your third or your unicorn or whatever the hell you're looking for, quit approaching monogamous people and trying to debate them down into coming over to your house and being a bang maid for your gross husband. Okay? Be decent. That's all I'm saying. Practice some common decency, respect for boundaries, and understanding of consent. It's really not that hard, guys. And with that said, I'm going to end this one. Hopefully the next episode is a little bit more heavy on all the good content and less on me ranting about something that really isn't that important. I don't know. Yeah. Until next time. Bye, y'all.